Alex.
Hey, Kate.
We've got some history on today's show.
Yes, local history about the punk scene in Bloomington.
Don't you mean in the Gulch?
Sure. Karl Templeton has the story. And then I also talked with Jim Mannion, who's been on the Bloomington music scene since the 70s.
Meanwhile, I seem to be obsessed with art supplies.
Really? Obsessed?
Well, more like art and community by way of local art supply shops.
Oh, okay, cool. And, it's Krampus season.
Right, with the scary but kind of cool-looking beasts with the large horns.
Yes, and a holiday market.
Nice.
That is nice. It's nice work. Coming up after this. This is Nice Work. I'm Alex Chambers. Coming up, a couple stories about music in Bloomington. We'll start with a story by Karl Templeton, who noticed that there was this word that people were using to describe Bloomington DIY and punk scenes specifically. Karl looked into it, and it turned out the word had been in use a lot longer than they thought.
Being a young adult in Bloomington, or in Indiana, or in the Midwest as a whole can give you complicated feelings. Some people love it, some people hate it. A lot of people find themselves saying, "Oh man, the Midwest is so boring. I need something to do." That's part of where DIY music scenes come from. DIY scenes are about having something to do in the Midwest. They're a cultural touchstone for cities like Bloomington, both big and small. You're not tied to big corporate music labels. It's about building community from the ground up. Helping each other record music themselves, make their own merch, book their own tours. It's about friends helping more friends. DIY music includes a bunch of genres, including hardcore, punk, indie rock, and shoegaze, just to name a few. There's a sense of pride that comes through with taking matters into your own hands to create art and build community. Bloomington's had a bustling DIY scene for a long time, and it has a particular name associated with it. There's a podcast called It's a Beautiful Day in the Gulch, and an album of the same exact name by hardcore punk band Laughing Gas. There's the song Gulch Brigade by hardcore band Full Stride. Those are all from the past 6 years, but it goes back even farther. Gulch Records, the label that put out the Gizmos, one of Indiana's first punk bands, started in the 1970s. These days you can see it on hardcore punk t-shirts and tote bags too. But why the word? Why do people keep calling Bloomington the Gulch? Miles Grimmer grew up in Franklin, Indiana. He was 18 when he was in college at IU in Bloomington. One day, he was visiting home when his uncle asked him,
"How's Bloomington? How's the Gulch?" We used to call it the Gulch.
The word stuck with him from that moment on. He got interested in Bloomington's history of DIY rock and started to learn more about it. That's when he found Gulch Records. We'll come back to Miles. He's one of the people who ran with the word years later. Bloomington played an important role in the early days of punk rock in Indiana. Gulch Records was a DIY record label and a zine that Bob Richert started in 1975. Richert was a grad student in geology, but he found himself spending more time spinning rock music at the campus radio station than studying rocks. By 1973, he discovered zines. It didn't take long for him to start Gulch magazine. That might be the first association in print of Bloomington and the word Gulch. But Richert didn't coin it. People had been calling Bloomington the Gulch already. He thinks it might be the terrain, but he admits he might be biased, since he arrived as a geology grad student. Some people think Gulch magazine and Gulch Records were named after a book that came out the year before. Gulcher, by rock critic Richard Meltzer, is a collection of his sprawling thoughts on rock music and culture of the previous decade. Bob Richer insists that he didn't name the zine and the record label after Meltzer's book. One of the bands on Gulcher Records was the Gizmos. They put Bloomington on the map as an important place in DIY rock. Formed in 1976, the Gizmos have been called Bloomington's first punk band. They sang the song "The Midwest Can Be All Right." That came out on a compilation album called Red Snert's The Sound of Gulcher in 1981. Dale Lawrence was a part of the Gizmos at that point. He sang on that song. The thing is, the Midwest didn't always feel alright. Dale remembers what it was like being part of the first wave of punk rock in Indiana. It felt lonely. He felt like not many people cared about the bands he liked, like Sex Pistols and the Ramones. People really didn't get it.
We were the weird band on the bill. We were able to play most of the bars in town, but never more than once.
They actually did get to go back once. It was for a Battle of the Bands contest.
That night was kind of wild, but that would have been like just as school resumed, 1979, and there was enough interest that slam dancing was sort of happening, and that got kind of out of hand. One of the organizers of the contest got the wind knocked out of him, got cannonballed. Our set was closed down early, and it was, I don't want to say near riot, but it was very tense atmosphere, and we were subsequently banned, not just from playing there, but from entering the Bluebird.
At this point, it's the early 80s. The word Gulch has taken on its first life in Bloomington. The Gulch is shaping into the space for punks, weirdos, and freaks to be themselves. A lot of indie music comes from people who feel marginalized in society. This is a space for people to be accepted for who they are. It's graduating from just a word to be thrown around to almost a badge of honor. And then it disappears for a few decades. After both of them heard the word Gulch thrown around for years in DIY music, it made its way into Miles and Alex's jokes when they'd be talking about the day they're having.
We used to say, like when we were hanging out and walking around, and when it's a nice day out, we'd just always say, it's a beautiful day in the Gulch. And it was sort of kind of like just a saying that we would throw around, and so we just decided to name it that.
Now it's the mid-20-teens. Remember Miles Grimmer? He's the college student whose uncle asked him about life in the Gulch. Now he's the vocalist for a band called Laughing Gas. They're playing tons of DIY shows around Bloomington, and they've released their second EP, self-titled as Laughing Gas.
I think in different periods of your life, it's pretty normal to have a sense of stuckness, and it's like the most frustrating thing. I think especially like for me, it was like in my mid-20s. It's like transitioning out of this one stage of life, having anxiety about if my like life was aligning with my goals or whatever.
Grimmer hasn't always remembered the exact time, place, and feelings he had surrounding every song he's written. But with the song The Gulch, he did.
Yeah, that song is just like being bored. It's a song that's like about being bored in your town, and like everything feels similar, or it's like there's shifts in like the energy. People you know have moved away, or like things you like disappeared. But at the end of the day, it's still like if you're still the same person in the shifting environment, I think there's a sense of frustration.
Miles is saying, "What are you doing? I gotta get away. I can't escape this. Run in place." He's talking about how he feels living in Bloomington during this time in his life, having feelings of frustration and stuckness, but eventually having a change of heart.
I think the refrain of that song is, "There's nothing to do and it's a beautiful day in the Gulch," which, it speaks to like just being able to appreciate where you're at, even if it's like it feels whack in that moment. I also feel like it's kind of like the Gizmo song, "The Midwest Can Be Alright." I see it as like a spiritual, it's kind of really draws inspiration from that line of thinking. It's like, I like the Midwest because there's nothing to do.
At the same time, when Laughing Gas was recording It's a Beautiful Day in the Gulch, Miles and local poet Alex Schwartzentruber started up a podcast of the same name. That was 2019.
We were just going to start a podcast loosely based on like life in Bloomington.
They wanted a nature element, so they recorded outside as they wandered around.
Just like kind of like a friendship simulator.
The podcast feels like a chat show, but it's weirder than that. Every episode will start with a cold open of Alex reading a poem.
Gulch, a narrow, steep-sided ravine marking the course of a fast stream. Example, it's a beautiful day in the Gulch, and by Gulch I mean Bloomington, Indiana, but also I mean my mind. Today is a beautiful day inside of my head. I holler into the gully, "It's a beautiful day in the Gulch."
Then they move into whatever topic they decide to sporadically talk about. Topics exploring questions like, how much does the moon weigh? Or do you swallow your gum? The podcast documents Alex and Miles as they find ways to entertain themselves in a seemingly boring town. By this point, the Gulch has morphed into this place for people working through their feelings about Bloomington or the Midwest. Both Alex and Miles are trying to find beauty in the mundaneness. After the pandemic, a new wave of punk and hardcore bands started to pop up around Bloomington. Chance Allen is part of the DIY scene of now. He started the DIY label RTR Tapes in 2022. He plays bass and Velocity, and he fronts the band's What Counts in Full Stride.
I've been into hardcore and part of hardcore since I was a kid, 15 or 16. So like it's something that I like am very passionate about and care very deeply about, just like the ethos and the subculture surrounding it.
DIY shows tend to be anywhere between 40 to 50 people, but Chance was seeing these 100-person mosh fests even in the summer when the students are gone.
People just like actually getting into like hardcore and what it means just made me really excited and feel really good.
Chance was inspired by the scene that came before him. He was the next person to take the word Gulch and run with it. In October of that year, Full Stride released their debut EP, which has the song Gulch Brigade.
Yeah, I just kind of wrote that song when I was like feeling really good about it, and just like all like the whole sing-along part, like the I'm reaching out part is just about like none of this stuff's ever going to be perfect, but you can find community here, you can be a part of something. Like it's like me like inviting people to be part of the Gulch Brigade, so to speak. That was kind of my motivation behind the song, and how that connects to like, all of that connects back to like loving where you live and being a part of something that's like your direct community, and not just like something on the internet or,
Gulch Brigade is a nickname for the Bloomington hardcore scene right now. This is the most recent use of the word, as other bands have started to use it in their own songs and merch too. The term takes on a broader meaning about community in the hardcore scene. It goes beyond Bloomington city lines to Indianapolis, or even other cities in the Midwest as a whole. Miles is in his 30s now. He's been in Bloomington since college. He believes in the idea that location can influence art.
When we think of like the major cultural hubs of America, we think of New York or LA. But I think that sometimes when you live out there, your ideas you become too influenced by other people. And I think when like music from the Midwest or Bloomington or Indiana or other less populated areas, it's at its best when it is distinct and idiosyncratic, because like the pace of life and the weather in the streets probably should influence you in some way. I also think another thing I think about myself is like people say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. But really, I believe New York's probably the easiest place to make it. And if you can make it from the middle of nowhere, then you can make it anywhere. Like with what I do, like there is something that I find it interesting to like have motion when I live seemingly in the middle of nowhere. It's not the middle of nowhere, but
Yeah.
it might seem like it.
Miles realized there's a certain charm about towns like Bloomington around the Midwest, creating art here.
When I am explaining to someone that I live in Bloomington, you know, sometimes I feel compelled to justify it, but other times it's like, I like it here, and like, you don't get it, and like, you don't have to get it. Like, not everyone should get it. This idea of the Gulch, by nature, it's kind of constrained. But true creativity comes from constraints. Like, if you have a blank sheet of paper, like, you don't know what you're gonna make, but like, if somebody already doodled a line on it and you have and your task is to like build from that doodle, you might come up with ideas that you wouldn't have before.
It can feel like there's nothing to do in the Gulch, but that's exactly what's given people like Miles, Alex, and Chance an opportunity to figure themselves out creatively and make the most with what they do have. An opportunity to make the music, the poems, the podcasts that they want to make. An opportunity to build community from the ground up and learn what it means to make art in this part of the country. For these guys at least, the Midwest can be all right.
Karl Templeton is a producer on our show. And I should add, Karl's band Koi has released music on Chance Allen's label, RTR Tapes. After Karl put that story together, I thought it'd be good to talk with someone who was around for Bloomington's early punk scenes. Jim Mannion got to Bloomington in 1972, and he's been involved with music here ever since. I'll let him explain. Can you just start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jim Mannion. I've been involved in the local music and art scenes in a lot of creative ways, from performance and being in bands, writing about music for the local alternative press, working in studios, starting a cassette label, producing shows, and my big identity in Bloomington that I forced a change on about 5 years ago when I left the job is I was one of the founders of WFHB, and originally my title was program director / music director. I managed at any given time 90 plus volunteer DJs and the constant fire hose of music coming into the station. But now I seem to have morphed into, I'm still doing a lot of creative work, but I've just naturally morphed into being kind of the local music historian.
So I wanted to bring you in to try to get a sense of the creative juice in Bloomington for the past 50 years more.
Yeah, I got here in 72.
In 72,
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe start by just telling me about getting here and what you kind of noticed when you first arrived.
In that first semester, I got out and I did start seeing local music. One of the first things I can remember is going to downstairs at the Union Building from where the cafeteria used to be upstairs. There was a little club called the Kiva. I saw a number of performers there, but what really struck me was seeing Mark Bingham and Caroline Payton as a duo, and they had been doing music together for probably a good 3 years at that point. And I was just floored by what they were doing. The songs were amazing. They both played guitars. Their vocal harmonies were incredible. Caroline herself was just an amazing vocalist. She passed away maybe 3 years ago. Mark Bingham is still growing strong and producing a lot of music. And in fact, he moved back to Bloomington about a year ago. So that was really significant for me. I can't remember which came first, hearing it, Michael Bourne play it on WFIU, or buying it myself. I think I actually got the album right away after I saw Mark and Caroline, but it was the first album on the label called Barbecue Records, BRBQ. And it was an acoustic album. It featured Mark's songs and Caroline's vocals.
And Barbecue Records was a local label.
Right. And
which also struck you.
Yeah, it really did, because as much as I was into music and as much as I was reading Rolling Stone and keeping up with all the bands and underground music, and I remember going to a record store. It was called Discount Records, I think. It was a chain. And I remember going in there, and that's where I bought Caroline Payton's album, Mock Up. But there was this handwritten list, and of course, Mark Bingham is always overly ambitious about what's going to happen creatively. And there was this list of 10 albums that they were going to put out, in the next 2 or 3 years. And I thought, wait a second. You can just start a record label? Don't you have to send stuff in and have somebody listen to it and tell you that it's good enough?
That's it feels really key for realizing that you can just do stuff.
Yeah. And that was a huge influence. And I was like, well, I'm going to do stuff.
So I want to stay in the 70s and 80s, but I'm going to reference something much later, which is that in the 90s, Billboard magazine called Bloomington the New Seattle, as you mentioned in this article that you wrote for Limestone Post.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear from you when you started to have a sense of Bloomington as this really rich place for all the music. I mean, you discovered the Screaming Gypsy Bandits, and then it was a little later in the 70s that there started to be out the punk bands, the Gizmos, and you know. So did you already have a sense of this place as being this really musically rich?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it was, even though there weren't that many venues at the time, it was really exciting for me that there was so much diversity in the local music scene. A lot of the music that was happening in Bloomington, the Bluebird wasn't interested in booking. And particularly there was a band called MX80 that was really influential in terms of, they started 3 years before the Gizmos did, and they were they started in 74. And they had, it wasn't necessarily punk rock, it was more textured than that. And these were guys that were into Ornette Coleman and Penderecki and just all these experimental type music scenes, Captain Beefheart, and they had a very unique sound. And they went on to, their first album came out on Island Records. The first EP came out on Barbecue Records. They eventually moved to San Francisco in the late 70s. But my point really is music like that, the only place where you could put on a show was at the Monroe County Public Library. You could get that music for free. They had a stage. You had to come in and do it yourself. So talk about DIY.
Yeah.
And it was a sit-down show with no alcohol, and unless you drank a little bit before you came to
Right.
the show. So it was a different kind of presentation, too.
That's for sure.
It wasn't a social blah, blah, blah kind of thing.
You got to really take the sort of the proto-punk experimental music seriously.
Yeah, yeah. And there were other things there, too. There was a woman named Judy Martin at the IU School of Music for a while that had this weird, strange early synthesizer called the Syncat. It more looked like the old, like when you'd see Lily Tomlin as the phone operator, where she'd stick the wires in, and so there were like trios and quartets that would come in there and perform just out their music.
I feel like talking even just about the 70s right now does give a sense of the interplay between the university and the community, the town gown thing, and that was a really kind of essential, that interplay was pretty essential for having so much life.
Well, it
and
was.
energy.
It was, particularly being a resource for Mark Bingham and friends. Caroline Payton was a vocal student at the music school. Mark Bingham was in and out of the music school for a while. I don't think he ever graduated, but he was very crafty, and he knew that was a resource for players. Yeah. So there were other people that came out of there. Dale Sophia, who was in MX80, was involved in the music school.
Okay.
So there were, a lot of crossover with the music school. But I think what we're fishing for here is like, what is it? What is it in Bloomington that inspires all this unique musical creativity?
Yeah.
And it's not just music, it's all the arts. I don't know. I've always been a little more mystically inclined than a lot of people, because I used to be very interested in ancient Egypt. And I remember reading a theory about ancient Egyptians generating electricity by running water through limestone. What is underneath the ground here? A lot of water running through limestone. Now,
like
that's
that.
pretty woo-woo, but so am I.
I'll take that.
But
and it fits with the geological gulch aspect.
But there's
something,
something, there's something there, but in a more rational way of looking at things, especially in the 70s and 80s. Have you ever read David Byrne's book about music?
No.
Well, there's a chapter in there about how to start a music scene. And, it was like cheap rent, be isolated from the rest of the world in one way. And so Bloomington checked all the boxes in terms of that, too. It might be kind of hard to imagine now for anybody in Bloomington here in 2025, but in the 1980s, before the south side of the square was redone by CFC as the Fountain Square Mall, those upstairs of those buildings was crawling with art studios, music studios, rehearsal studios, little apartments that weren't really legal, but that people were living in. And it wasn't just punk rock. In the mid-'80s, there was everything from hardcore punk bands to Malcolm Dalglish was up there and had his office and his
Hammer Dulcimer.
Yeah. And it was a really heady time. So here we were in the late 70s, and, the Gizmos kind of led the way. The first inspiration for this sort of new sound was really earlier than that, like I mentioned, with MX80. But there were some of us, I was 25, and I was kind of like, well, now it's our turn. And so, I fell in this situation where I had studio time, and I could produce and engineer bands and put out compilation cassettes and stuff. Those folks really set a good example. And, that whole thing carries on. And I contend that the spirit of DIY in Bloomington music, the foundation goes back to those times in the 70s. But I also contend that it goes back to Hoagie Carmichael. What did Hoagie Carmichael do in the 20s? He had his band here, and he wanted to bring up a jazz band from Louisville, and he got a space on the second floor of the courthouse square and put on a dance. What does that sound like? DIY. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, thank you so much.
All right.
We're going to go out on a track from the Riff-O-Matics, the band that Jim played drums in from 1980 to 1984. This is Guns of Reagan from 1983. I'm Alex Chambers, and you're listening to Nice Work.
This is Nice Work, and I'm Kate Young, and I'm here in the studio today with Heather Farmer and Maureen Langley. Heather, you are the owner of the Bloomington Fine Arts Supply. It is an independent art supply shop on Rogers and 4th Street near downtown Bloomington, but it is much more than an art supply shop. Could you talk about your vision?
So we started out as just a kind of a retail space, and the Creative Commons, our classroom space, was really just a set of work tables that we had in the shop underneath some hanging light fixtures. And it didn't take long before our programming kind of outgrew that space, because we were finding that there was a real interest in not just opportunities to learn from community artists, but to connect with other people creatively. So when the opportunity came along to add on the studio space, I was really excited about all of the possibilities that presented. And I really view that kind of community building piece as inseparable from how we exist in the community as an art supply, because it becoming a space where people go to not just for paints, but for the inspiration to use them and for the connection that I think is necessary in the hierarchy of needs to do creative things. It really requires support and community input from a well-being standpoint. So for me, that was always going to be a really central part of what the shop was about.
I definitely got that feeling from you when I first entered the store before you had the expanded studio space. The way you had things set up was all very inviting, and you were very inviting, and it just felt like, okay, this is not just a place to pick up supplies. I don't know if we wanted to have a weekly draw session or something. I bet she'd be open to it.
Yeah, and that is really how some of our free programming came along. Jennifer Davis approached me and said, what do you think about me to focus on collage? And I thought, yeah, let's do that. And so that's kind of how our free programming started to take shape. Hearing from members of the community about the things they're interested in and are curious about really, I think, has informed a lot of the programming that we're doing, because I'm really not interested in running a business or an organization that is reliant solely upon my ideas and my worldview and my own creative experience. So when people come out of the woodwork and say, I have an idea, can we collaborate on this? I think, man, this is where the good part is.
So one of the ongoing Art in Common workshops is Zine Club. And Maureen, you are the one who started Zine Club. So what happens at Zine Club?
Zine Club is like, there's no rules to it. It's a place where like you bring any idea you have, and if you don't have an idea, I am happy to give you what's rattling around in my brain. And people honestly just play. It's just playtime. Just dedicated playtime.
So full disclosure, I have gone to Zine Club several times, and I can say a little bit about what I've noticed about it. First of all, it's quite popular. People fill up the room pretty much. Mm-hmm. And there are some examples of different kinds of zines that you bring, kind of like a library for us to look at.
Yeah, I do bring the TLZL every time. However, I just installed the TLZ, a tiny little zine library. It's a tiny little zine library. It's usually in like an old like metal like lunchbox. But I ran out of room. Like there was like I had too many people's zines. People come, they make zines, and then they just like leave them with me, which is like so joyful to see other people's work in that way and then wanting me to have it. But last week I installed it permanently until Heather sets the store on fire or something in the shop, so people like they can go anytime the shop's open and just like browse it and like put their stuff there, take one home with them. So that's now a permanent source of inspiration.
And there are also different supplies, some that I think the store has, and then some that you bring, and different kinds of papers and things that people can just use to make their zines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am someone who has a lot of art supplies because I like to try all different things all the time. And then Heather stocks the Creative Commons with, I don't know, what do you stock it with?
Oh, gosh, all kinds of goodies in there. We've got all different types of paper. Some people are doing zines that are like more ink heavy, whereas some people are doing like just graphite drawing. So different types of paper. We've got markers and colored pencils and rulers and sharpeners. It's just kind of this like micro little art supply over there. And having those materials available alongside our free programming, I think, is something that Maureen and I both agree on and feel strongly about, which is that if it's a free program,
it should be free.
It should be free top to bottom. And like we've got plenty of classes where, you pay the cost of admission to come study with a local artist to pick up a new technique. And, I'm thrilled to be able to support artists as they create careers for themselves through that avenue. But for our free programming, being able to say, really all you need is the willpower to get yourself there and the curiosity to dive in once you arrive. And this is true also for Art Club and Collage Collective. All the materials are provided. Sometimes someone has a fancy pair of scissors they prefer to use, or they have specific like a whole tool. Sometimes people bring an entire toolbox of their like curated images or whatnot. So you're always welcome to bring your own things, but it's a lot of fun to see people like dive in and unpack the shelves for those the supply shelves in the studios at these events.
I also want to note it's all ages. I've had, people come that were like 2 years old to, whatever the upper limit of human aging is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all ages and all kinds of different people come, and it's such a joy just to, see who's going to be there that week.
Yeah, it really has nothing to do with age or previous experience or ability, or I hear this all the time in the shop, well, I'm not an artist. I hear this from people a lot, and inviting people to just cast off whatever their preconceptions are about, air quotes, being an artist, and coming to just engage their curiosity and connect with other people.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really critical skill in being a serial creative.
Yeah. And also, Maureen, with the Zine Club, and I think this is true of the other ones, there's not, well, maybe the Art Club has a tutorial, but you're not necessarily instructing, though if someone wants to know how to fold a zine, kind of a basic zine fold, you will show them that. You also have like a little list of prompts that people can take. So there's something there to help people get started, but it's not like, okay, today's lesson is this kind of zine or whatever. So
yeah, I got to make it fun for myself. And if I had to lead a lesson every time, it wouldn't be as enjoyable. But I am always willing to teach anybody any kind of information I have, whether it's like how to fold a zine, how to grow vegetables, honestly, anything that I know other people can know too. But as far as Zine Club goes, I bring an instructional zine every time. I always have copies of it that introduces zines, a little bit about the history where you can learn more, and then like how to do a basic fold. And I've given demos like probably almost every meeting. Yeah, I'm happy to teach, but it's not built into Zine Club because a lot of people, once they come a couple of times, they don't want to get the same lesson.
Maureen creates a really inviting atmosphere where asking questions and showing up and saying, I don't know the first thing about this, where that is not only okay, but encouraged. And I want to give her credit for that, for creating a really welcoming but still upbeat atmosphere that people, I think, it allows people to engage their own creativity without judgment of self or judgment of results.
I also like to show people just some of the real garbage I've created. I mean, there's truly like no pressure to be good.
It's really fun to be in a space where creativity, whether it's very ambitious or just a simple expression of whatever passing thought you're having, where both of those things can coexist. That makes for a really interesting community.
Can you tell me of like a memorable moment in Zine Club?
Okay, well, there are a lot of things made in Zine Club that I cannot talk about on the radio. Again, you get people from all walks of life in there, so there are some truly goofy things that are being made.
Having a space where people can come openly, in an open-ended way, engage whatever it is they're curious about, whether it's really refining a skill or meeting people in Zine Club and just trying something new because it's fun to try something new. It's really an immense joy and responsibility to maintain a space like that.
Yeah, for me, Thursdays and Commons are just, I block them all off of my schedule every single time because for me, it's just the act of having a place that you can go to and do your project, whether it's like the idea of that day or if it's just something you're working on, like that is so important to me, just to have a consistent time that you can count on every single month just to go and be creative.
Maureen Langley and Heather Farmer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you
was
so
fun,
much.
Kate.
This is Nice Work. I'm Kate Young. Alex, we're back for more Nice Work. And like it or not, the holiday season is here.
It sounds like you don't so much like the holidays, Kate.
I do. It's just a lot.
What, you don't like fruitcake?
I do actually like fruitcake. It's just, I just feel like it's a lot of bright, shiny, forced happiness.
Okay. Well, if you're not so into the tiny elves and silver bells, I might have an antidote.
I'm listening.
Krampus.
Oh, yeah, I do like Krampus.
Well, then you're in luck. Lily Marks has more.
In America, we tell our kids, hey, be good or you're going to get coal. And the European tradition is, hey, be good or Krampus is going to stuff you in a sack and make you work for the rest of forever and be an elf. So here in the States, we have the idea of Santa Claus. So I always liken Krampus as the antithesis to that.
It's the most wonderful time of the year when naughty children around the world wonder if they're going to get coal in their stockings. Or worse, if Krampus is going to punish them. On December 14th at Switchyard Park from noon to 6 p.m., Bloomingtonians can celebrate the legend of Krampus at the Krampus Bizaar.
My name is Rain Hutchins. I am a local tattoo artist and I run Twig and Ash Event Planning. It's a pagan event planning business. So back in October of 2021, I actually opened a metaphysical, like a witchy store. And Krampus was ending. The person who put it together, her name was Kel McBride. She basically said, hey, I'm going to do this for 10 years, and after 10 years, I'm going to be done.
After Kel McBride decided to stop hosting her Bloomington Krampus events in 2021, Hutchins wanted to pick up where she left off.
I was like, you know what, if Kel's done with it, if she's not going to keep it going, maybe I could take it over because, I run a pagan shop. This is like a European tradition, like a pagan tradition. So I approached her about it, and she was like, I give you my blessing to keep going, not taking it from me, but doing your own thing. And I was like, sure. I'm a huge trade show kind of guy. So I was like, let's do a Krampus themed like craft show, right? Local makers can sell things for the holidays and make money, and then local attendees can come buy gifts, handmade stuff. It's local supporting local, which is huge for me. And that's just kind of how it started. I call it the Krampus Bizaar, and it is just a Krampus-themed craft show, if you will.
In just his first few years of running his Krampus events, they have exponentially grown.
Last year, when I did Krampus, I had so many overflow vendors, and I had to tell them, I'm sorry, I don't have the room. This year, we have doubled. So we have 40 vendors. We have 5 different readers. We're going to be at Switchyard Park, so it's 7,000 square feet. Bloomington Brewing Company is going to come in and still sell their beer. They're going to offer like a beer garden sort of thing we're going to set up. So we're growing, and that's what I want. And I released the vendor applications for Krampus. In less than 24 hours, I had more people than I had spaces. The event should be super huge this year. We'll have food trucks. It's kid friendly. Yeah, we've got a lot planned. The pagan community is, the backbone of it is helping and assisting one another. The idea, the old adage that it takes a village, the idea is that back in the day, the whole village came together to raise the kids, to do the livestock, to support one another. I want us to support our neighbors. So it's important to me to have local makers, like all of these wonderful people that I met that make things or sew things or have these great ideas. They deserve to have that spotlight, and it's all about building up the village.
Visit facebook.com/Twig and Ash event planning for more information. For Nice Work, I'm Lily Marks.
So is Krampus going to work for you, Kate?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And now let's get back to the topic of art supplies.
Okay.
Specifically, where to get them.
But this one, the supplies are not new, right?
Right. They come from the community.
Oh, like if I had leftover modeling clay from that bust of Richard Nixon I'd been working on?
Sure. Or those wool felting tools I'm probably never going to pick up again.
Or all that construction paper just stacked up in the bottom drawer.
Hang on to that. The kids might need it for some last-minute diorama for school.
Oh, yeah, that seems likely. Well, I do want to hear more about this shop.
When I was a kid, my mom had this cool little oval-shaped tin that once held, according to the blue and gold decorative labeling, marshmallows. It was likely passed down from my mom's mom, and it held a treasure greater than squishy white sweets. It was filled with buttons, all kinds, new ones and old ones, big ones and small ones. And I loved playing with these. I would dump them out on the carpet and sort them according to size or color or type of button. There were the common small white and brown ones for cardigans and button-down shirts. And there were fancy ones for lush coats and gowns, some cloth-covered, and I recall a large beaded yellow one that was the queen of them all. I continued this tradition with my own child. Though the marshmallow tin was long gone, I found something similar at a yard sale and picked up a jar filled with random old buttons at an antique store. My kid loved sorting and lining them up just as I had. If you want to try this out for your own kids, or even for yourself, it's a pretty relaxing activity. You can find an odd and varied collection of buttons at Art Remains. It's an art supply store filled entirely with donated items. It's known as a creative reuse center. It's a nonprofit fully run by volunteers. And you can find a lot more than buttons.
Quality paper, stack of yarns. We have a bead section. We have leather scraps, which are very popular. Upholstery samples, small squares.
Sue McCracken is the president of the board of Art Remains. They're located in the same building as Goods for Cooks on the square in downtown Bloomington, downstairs. It's a pretty small room.
We need more space. We keep spilling out into the hallway so that we can display more of our items.
They've been at this location since May of 2024, and they're part of a larger movement of creative reuse centers around the country. The model is simple.
We take donations of arts and craft supplies and we resell them at very affordable prices to keep them out of landfills and make art affordable for everyone. Paints, watercolors, pastels, brushes. It's a great place for kids to do all kinds of crafts, but it's also serious artists. Sometimes we get some really nice oil paints, really quality brushes, excellent supplies for serious artists also.
I spoke with a customer named Mia, an art student at IU. She noted that Art Remains often carries many of the supplies for the various disciplines in the art school.
If you take multiple studios, things can add up. So this is a really, really nice place to look first.
Sue McCracken says that they generally price things at 1/4 or 1/3 of what they would cost new.
Acrylic yarn we sell by 25 cents per ounce. Our natural fibers are labeled. Most of them range from $1 to $2 or $3 per skein. We actually have somebody who comes in who knows fibers to price them for us. You can actually test for natural fibers by lighting it on fire. If it has plastic solids after you're done, it's acrylic. And if it just dissolves, then it's a natural fiber.
Chalk and markers and crayons and...
Yes, crayons, markers, they're a penny a piece because we just can't give them away sometimes. I don't think the yarn supply and the fabric supply will ever end.
Art Remains does donate excess supplies to other organizations who need them, and they're looking to expand both their space and their open hours. You can find more at artremains.org.
Glitter, glitter, glitter.
That's it for our show. I'm Kate Young.
And I'm Alex Chambers.
This is Nice Work, a production of WFIU, WTIU, and Indiana Public Media. Find us at ipm.org.
This episode was produced and edited by Kate Young. We get production help from Danny William, Holly Wilkerson, Karl Templeton, Eddie Stewart, Leo Pies, Jillian Blackburn, Jonah Ballard, and special thanks this week to Lily Marks.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Alan Davis. Additional music from Universal Production Music. The executive producer is Eric Bolstridge. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Nice work, Kate.
Nice work, Alex.